Hello guys and welcome to another video on Assetto Corsa Competizione on the PlayStation 5. Today we're going to have a look at my wheel settings now the 1.8 update has been released. Now this is a little bit bugged and unfortunately you have to reload your settings every time you load up the game. Now these are the force feedback settings that I use. I've got the gain on 65%. The minimum force is on 0%, then I've got the dynamic damping on 80%, the road effects on 5%, any higher on these and I feel like the wheel just vibrates a little bit too much in my hands. The steer lock is on 1080 and this is set to maximum because the game will auto lock depending on which car you're driving. Steer scale is on 100 and the steer linearity and the brake gamma are both on 1, which is default. And then you can see I've added a 1% dead zone to both the throttle and the brake, and this is so that I get 100% braking and 100% throttle in game. If I don't have that 1% dead zone, I don't quite reach 100% in those values. Now the wheel I'm on is a Fanatec CSL Elite and I will include my Fanatec Wheelbase settings in the description below. Now in terms of button mapping, R1 and L1 are the flappy paddles on the back of my wheel. I use the ignition as circle and I like to have this as close as possible to my right thumb so that when I'm entering the pit box I can turn the ignition off as quickly as possible so the pit stop will be as short as possible. Starter is set to square and then the pit limiter is set at triangle. I also want that within quite easy reach so that I don't end up speeding in the pit lane. I've got the right button as increased traction control and the left button as decreased traction control. Now there is a bit of a glitch here because I've got increased brake bias as up and decreased brake bias as down, but whenever I press down out on track it also makes me look behind, so this is bugged and I haven't found any way around that so far. There's also nowhere to actually map looking behind within the control bindings settings. I have the flasher set to X and this is an important button so that if you're coming up behind a back marker or something you can give them a little flash so they know you're there. Cycle through the MFD is on L3. Very important to be able to go through the MFD while you're out on track. You'll see that the left indicator and right indicator are left blank, but R2 and L2 will activate these buttons whilst out on track anyway. Again, I haven't found any way around this so far, so if you map another setting as L2 or R2, it will also activate those indicators at the same time. Finally, I've mapped R3 to the MFD pit stop, and this is really useful to bring up the pit stop menu whilst you're in a race if you need to make any changes for your next stop. Now hopefully they fix these button mapping bugs because at the moment I can't really use L2 and R2 simply because they just function as indicators and I don't want to start indicating randomly during a race whilst out on track, and I'd also like to be able to adjust my brake bias without having to look behind me at the same time. Now I hope you found this video useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you out on track very soon.